Hi, Elis. Hi, Mike. How does the offer of free beer sound to you guys?
Inconceivable. It will never happen.
Sounds like a dream. It's a dream world, isn't it?
No, it is not. Listen to this. Our friends at beer52.com are giving you the opportunity to sip 8 free exclusive craft beers from around the world.
I'm still not entirely sure that I believe you, but still, that's all well and good, right? So how? Tell me how.
I mean, that's 2 more than 6. What are the details, Steff?
Solid maths. All you need to do is go to www.beer52.com/distant and cover £4.95 for the postage. The case will be delivered straight to your doorstep, and you don't even need to leave the house.
Yeah. I mean, technically, we're not allowed to leave the house anyway, are we?
Beer 52 are beer pioneers, gentlemen. They are going around the world to find the best and most interesting beer from the greatest small batch breweries on planet Earth. No surprise then that they are the world's most popular craft beer discovery club. Each month, Beer 52 deliver a case with a different theme. Themes have included Germany, Korea, Norway, South Africa, California, Finland, and many more, but they have not forgotten their roots. As an independent UK company, Beer 52 are also passionate about the UK craft beer scene. The beauty of Beer 52 is that they will not and do not hold you to ransom. There's no lock-in. You can leave at any time.
Oh, yeah, that sounds good, but I mean, you know me, Steff. I'm all about the snacks.
As well as your individual beers, Mike, you will receive a cheeky snack. You like magazines, Elis?
Well, I'm a confident reader, Steff.
Okay, do you like the award-winning craft beer magazine Ferment?
Oh, I mean, it sounds right up my alley.
There you go. Do you like dark beers? No, that's okay. You can opt for the light beer plan. It's easy.
You just go to www.beer52.com/distant to get your first case of 8 beers for free.
I'll just recap that, Alan, Steff. That is beer52.com/distant. Beer52.com. That's the word beer, right? Then the numbers 5 and 2 makes 52.com.
So as the secret guitarist plays the grandstand theme, it can mean only one thing. Episode 6 of the Socially Distant Sports Bar has just landed on your podcast feed. Elis James, Mike Bubbins, and the other one, bringing you 2 clips each from YouTube, 1 sportsbook each, and one of us brings a documentary every episode as well. Elis, how are you? You okay?
Very good. So an amazing thing on the Facebook page for my 5 Live show. Well, for my Radio X show.
Here we go.
Where there are people who are big fans of this podcast, big fans of Mike in particular. One person describing Mike's health advice as Trumpian.
Oh, yes. Brilliant. Thank you.
Because obviously, if you're new to this podcast and you haven't heard the first few episodes, I will give him his dues. Mike was in very good shape when was your peak, Mike? Early 2000s?
I'd say around 2001, 2001.
Yeah. There are pictures on his personal Facebook where he's training in the gym, not wearing a huge amount, and it is impressive.
I mean, they're not there all the time. I don't put them up every
No. But they're there. No. You know, if you search for them, you can find them. But during this period, Mike was eating literally 0 fruit and veg.
No, well, that's fine.
But I'm all right. How are you, Steff?
I'm all right. I'm okay, thanks. Yeah. I'm kind of settling into the evening. Kind of 1 beer and some internet connection issues later. I feel all right. I'm kind of good. I'm kind of okay. Mike, how's Bubbins Towers? All good?
Yes, all good, mate. Very, very well. Been enjoying the sunshine. Been enjoying just life in lockdown. Yeah, it's been brilliant. So it's all good for me.
Excellent. Right. So we have documentary heading our way in a little while, but let's start with clips. And Mike sent this one through earlier on in the week, and I was supposed to be doing work at the kitchen table, and I absolutely collapsed into fits of laughter with my headphones on, giving away the fact that I wasn't actually marking essays.
Unless the essay was that bad.
It does happen from time to time. Mike, what is clip number 1?
This is a bloke I've got an awful lot of time for. He always comes across very, very well in interviews, and he never takes himself too seriously. This is the wonderful, the one and only Sean Williamson, a.k.a. Barry from EastEnders, singing before the World Bowls final.
We're gonna do it anyway. We're gonna do it anyway. We're gonna do it anyway. Because there's something inside so strong. I know that I can make it. Though you're doing me wrong, so wrong.
How good is that? How good is that, right? I mean, there's a bloke who doesn't piss about, pardon my French, right? He's been asked to go in there for reasons best known to the organisers and sing that particular song to all the 75-year-old white people in the audience, and he gives it absolute, doesn't he? Gives it the full works.
I feel very sorry for him because I think he's been stitched up by the director,
Yes.
who insists on those cutaways of very bored-looking people. And you think, give Sean Williamson, a.k.a. Barry from EastEnders, cut him a little bit of slack. There's no need to pan across a load of very, very bored-looking pensioners. The man is trying his best.
Well, it wouldn't matter if that was like Otis Redding and his pump. I mean, it would have gone down similarly. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's no reflection on his performance as a singer. Although at the end, when he does absolutely nail that last line, it just get. What would the process have been? Obviously, this is a sports podcast, and this is really stretching the criteria. I realise that, right? But the first time I saw this, I was aghast because I thought it was a spoof. I thought because the way it was cut, I thought that he's singing somewhere and they cut it into the World Bowls final, right? But it genuinely was the World Bowls final.
I thought it was something from extras I hadn't seen.
Yeah, it plays like... Well, because there are versions of it as well where they've cut him in singing at Trump's inauguration. There are a few different versions of this at ludicrous events. But the actual premise of it is ludicrous.
I'll tell you, when he's really into it, he's very method. The line that says, "Bro, just look him in the eyes and see." He does the sort of The Office, the two fingers point to his own eyes, and then the point to the audience. I think, God bless you, Sean, because that's next level for me. I've
got an enormous amount of sympathy for him as a comedian who has...
Christ,
I've died on my arse at corporate events. I no longer say yes to them. If you're listening to this podcast and you're interested in booking me for a corporate event, don't bother. I'll ruin your night. And there's a sinking feeling that Mike will be familiar with, where you turn up at a show and you just realise that everything is against you and nothing is in your favour. And as Mike said, Aretha Franklin couldn't have done that.
It would have made a difference, yeah.
But if you're there for the World Bowls final, you're there to watch bowls. You're not there to have Barry from EastEnders.
Well, no, but if you're there for a trade dinner for the building construction industry in North Wales, you're not there to see me doing some jokes about my dick either. But I mean, that's what you're going to get. So, I've got to tell you this, right? I've got two very brief Barry-esque experiences of doing corporates. I haven't got a Radio 5 show like you, right? I still have to do the corporates. I am available for corporates. Right, I did one in it was the aforementioned builders in North Wales. I won't tell you the exact organisation, but I sat on a table and the bloke who organised it, was, for want of a better word, a dick, right? So my agents listen to this. I apologise. I spoke to there was an architect sat on the table with us, and you know this, Al. You got to sit down and have a meal with the people as well. It's bloody awful. Just waiting to go on. And all I said, he said, "What do you want me to say?" I said, "Don't say anything, mate. Just introduce me and I'll get on." And I'd asked for it when they said, "What do you want?" I said, "I'm not a diva, just a microphone that works." Right. But it was like one of those fixed lectern mics, right? So I was like fucking Billy Graham at the front of the thing, right? Right? So I do half an hour to some pissed builders. It's just one of the worst gigs possibly imaginable, right? And I came off, and the bloke who booked me said, hey, that didn't go too well, that, did it? I said, no, it's fucking awful, thanks. He went, just do dirty jokes. I said, yeah, I don't do dirty jokes. Just do dirty jokes. We're builders, mate, do dirty jokes. I said, but I don't, that's not the sort of comic I am. But just do dirty jokes. I said, not only do I not do dirty jokes, I said, but you sent me an email last week saying don't do any dirty jokes. Right?
I was sat on the table with the president of the company I was doing the corporate for. This is years ago now. And his wife, and then the ex-president, the retired president, who they used to invite back for this Christmas do, and his wife, and she leant over and she said, I haven't seen you before. What are you doing here? And I said, I'm the turn. And she said,
good use of the word.
What are you, singer or magician? I said, comedian, believe it or not. And she said, can I just say that I hate comedy of every kind? I said, right. And then she went, oh no, hang on. There is a kind of comedy I like. There is a humour I like. Hang on.
The racist stuff.
Yeah, she leant over to her husband. Malcolm, what is the humour I like? And his face fell. He'd obviously had to say this at every social engagement for the last 30 years. He went, Margaret, the kind of humour you like is on Dennis Norden's It'll Be All Right on the Night. There is a...
Strong start.
There is a clip where a TV presenter is being pecked at by geese and turkeys.
Very specific.
And yet she heroically continues to broadcast despite being in some quite considerable discomfort. And then she went, yes, that's the humour I like.
That's the sort of humour I like. That's my genre.
And I said, I'll see what I can do.
You like this one, right? At least with corporates, they're usually fairly well paid because they're so torturous, right? I did one for free once, early days of comedy. I've been going about less than a year. A mate of mine got married in Exeter. Asked me to come down and do some comedy at his wedding, right? I said, mate, his name's Tom. He lives in Texas now, right? I said, Tom, that's not gonna work, mate. Oh, please come down. Come on.
Awful. Yeah.
Okay, so I hadn't seen him for 10 years. We go to Exeter for the wedding. What he didn't tell me was, when he said Exeter, he meant Exeter Cathedral because his old man was best friends with the Bishop of Exeter, right?
Ooh.
So we have the
big room.
Oh, it is. So we have the service. Now Tom's not a particularly gregarious bloke, so I reckon the average age of the guests there was probably in the 70s. They're all friends of his parents more than anything else, right?
Oh dear.
So we go back to this little hotel just across from the Cathedral Green there in Exeter. By the time they get to the best man speech, everyone's catching flies, right? Everyone's falling asleep. They've got their mouths open. It's just it is dire. Don't mind me saying, right? He gets on the top table and says, Mike, come on, do a bit now. I said, oh, Tom, no, let's just go to the bar, mate. Let's go to the bar. He said, no, please. Shit. So I get up now, right? Now, I don't know anybody in the room. I only know Tom. Kelly, my wife, who's with me, doesn't even know Tom, right? So I stand up to do this stand-up set, right? For 80 pensioners that I don't know, right? For free. Sat right in front of me, and I mean literally 8 feet away, is the Bishop of Exeter, right? In a fucking cassock with a crucifix on, right? And then the bride's mum and dad are sat to my right. Now, the bride's dad is blind and almost totally deaf, right? So the only way that he can know what's going on is she shouts my lines into his ear, right? Now, I've got no plan B. I've only just started doing comedy. There's no plan B, right? So the bit that stuck in my mind is when I'm looking right at the Bishop of Exeter, so I've got to do this line. So I don't know. I haven't got, like I said, there's no other option. So I commit to the line. The wife turns around to the husband and goes, and then he fingered her. Right? And the Bishop of Exeter gave me the most withering look imaginable. And it was next level. It really was. Hey.
Oh,
so tip of the hat to Sean Williamson, anyway.
Yeah, good news, Mike. It hasn't been a life wasted, but you are going to hell. I have seen it must be some sort of promotional event for the London 2012 Olympics. Tony Hadley singing Gold in a meeting room. Like in a meeting room in a fairly standard average run of the mill office room.
Yeah.
And there's about 20 people there, and he's got a cordless mic, and he's coming out of a tiny little speaker. And Tony Hadley, let's not forget, an enormously successful singer, and he clearly has been roped into this because he thinks Seb Coe is going to be there, and there's about 15 people there, all with lanyards on.
Go!
Always believe it. Oh, it's awful.
Do you know what I can never understand? And it's the same when Barry from EastEnders is singing at the World Bowls final, right?
Yes.
That would have cost quite a lot of money, I'd imagine, for him to do that, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be several £1,000s.
Yeah.
Okay? If I do a corporate, that's going to cost quite a bit of money. I'm sure if Tony Hadley's doing it, it costs a lot of money, right? Wouldn't you be better off not spending that money and just put it onto the prize fund or give everyone a free pint or just do something much more constructive with it? If I was doing that gig in North Wales for builders, just give them all a free pint.
It would have been better if they'd put on a Roy Chubby Brown video.
Oh, they'd have bitten your hand off for that. They'd have loved it. But that's why I think Barry deserves all the plaudits for that, because, like I said, right at the top, he's going for it there. He's not taking the money and running.
Absolutely.
He's not dropping an octave. He's not taking the easy route. He's blasting the big notes out and probably going for it.
Oh, I'd have undersold that song if that had been me.
Oh,
I'd have done it in third gear.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's genuinely sweating by the end of it.
Yeah.
You look like Wilson Pickett by the end of that song.
Ollie Evans.
That one will be at the top of the YouTube playlist for you this week. Second on the list will be your choice, Al. What have you brought first time round?
It is England 3, Hungary 6 from 1953, the so-called match of the century, and it is a tremendous display of hubris, really, from the England team. The England team had only suffered one defeat on home soil against foreign opposition. They'd lost to the Republic of Ireland in 1949, and that was at Goodison, so they hadn't lost at Wembley. They had lost to Scotland at Wembley. It had created a real climate of complacency, so everyone involved in English football just assumed that they were the best team in the world, as the originators of the game, that English tactics were the best. The England notably hadn't taken part in the 1930, 34 or 38 World Cups.
Right.
And they'd done very badly in 1950, but that was seen as an aberration. We're going to be using that word a lot when we're discussing this clip. So they were playing Hungary, and everyone knew that Hungary were useful because they'd won the gold medal at the 1952 Olympics.
Yeah.
But, it's Hungary behind the Iron Curtain, and anyway, they get absolutely stuffed. So let's watch the clip.
Here they go again, with some of the most perfect teamwork ever seen on the green grass of Wembley. Puskas goes down to Johnson's tackle, but the Hungarian captain slips it over to Hidikuti, who shakes the net with goal number 2.
Billy Wright was regarded as the best defender in the world. That drag back from Ferenc Puskas, he doesn't know what's going on, and he's never seen football like that before. And the England team, as they walked out, they were apparently laughing at the Hungarians' kit, just thinking, well, this is going to be a walk in the park. This is going to be easy, because they were wearing lightweight boots, and obviously the kit wasn't as good as the English kit. And the West Ham Academy, which were all the young players who actually went on to win the World Cup in '66, where a lot of them learned their trade. They'd gone down to watch Hungary train, were laughing at the kit, and then realised that they were volleying the ball to each other without it touching the ground from a distance of 20 yards, and they were just doing it time and time again. And they were all sort of nudging each other, thinking, oh, shit, God, they're half decent. What Hungary did was they played in a way that the England team just simply couldn't cope with. So they had a deep lying centre forward in Hidikuti, and I mean the English defence they didn't know what to do, because they thought, well, he's too deep for us to man mark him. So if we go and follow him, we're then out of position.
Yeah. But
if we don't follow him, he's got all this time and space. And crucially, he is fucking brilliant. So they just had no idea what to do, and they were constantly being drawn out of position. And Hungary just murdered them.
Well, I've never seen a game of football from that time before. Not honestly, sort of 3-4 minute clip.
Yeah.
What blew me away of that clip, Al, was how good the skills were in the Hungary team.
Yes.
And I think this is like an uncoated leather ball with,
Yeah.
none of the stuff that we would now regard as being essential to play sort of highly skilled football, you wouldn't think, right?
Yeah.
The one, I can't remember if it was the 4th or 5th goal, but it's a long distance bending shot into the corner.
Yeah.
And I thought, Christ, that would be like goal of the month now. It was just a fantastic display of skill by the boys there.
So England's centre-half was called Harry Johnson.
Right.
And he was marking Hidaguti, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it actually, but who was playing as this false nine, I suppose, sort of deep-lying centre-forward, effectively a midfielder. And it meant that Harry Johnson was always being pulled out of position, and they didn't know what to do. And the way English football worked at the time was, if you marked your opposing number, but because the Hungarian forwards it was very fluid and they were changing position during the match, it meant that you were like, well, do I follow my man or do I not? And they just never played against anything that fluid before. And in terms of influence of the game, influence of this game, Don Revie was an enormous admirer of this team, so he was, he started playing as a sort of a deep-lying centre-forward at Man City. Bill Nicholson, who ended up winning the double with Spurs, he started adopting their tactics. The English FA really realised that you needed to start playing in Europe because otherwise English football was going to get left behind. Alf Ramsey plays in that team. And the English FA assumed that it was a bad day at the office, and that it was some sort of
completely outplayed.
Yeah, and it was some sort of 35 shots to 5. And it was this sort of this aberration, and they were like, "Listen, we're originators of the game. We invented football." The thing with the English FA, because there was a sort of English exceptionalism to the way they saw themselves and the way they saw English football. What they did was they were like, all right, then we'll play you again. We'll play you out in Budapest next year. And they got stuffed 7-1. England were playing in very rigid, straight lines until the 80s. So I read this brilliant article by Barney Ronay in The Guardian about the quarter-final they played against Argentina, the 86 World Cup, the Hand of God game.
Yeah.
And Barney says, the names of the starting 11 are Pete, Gary, Kenny, Terry, Trevor, Glenn, Pete, Steve, Pete and Gary. Little wonder that in this company, being called Glenn could mark you out as a bit of a maverick. Alf Ramsey was really, really struck by this match. So the wingless wonders that they played in '66, that was a big change. Certainly in the context of English football. And Alf Ramsey was the first manager to be allowed to pick his own team, because before that it was a board of selectors, like Welsh rugby was for decades. So Walter Winterbottom, he had no experience of football management. And yet he was manager of the England team, which is absurd, by today's standards. And it did influence people like Bill Nicholson and Matt Busby and Don Revie and Alf Ramsey, people who would go on to completely, revolutionise the club game. But certainly at international level, apart from '66, the England team didn't qualify for anything from 1970 to 1982, even though the club sides were doing so well in Europe. But this game, the idea that they could be laughing at the kit because it's, a country that's part of the Soviet Union.
What a lot of wankers.
And then they get absolutely hammered.
Good.
I just think
good.
Is very, very interesting.
Right. For this round, I have brought a clip it's from a documentary. It's from 2009 from the Lions tour. They kind of carried on those sort of Living with the Lions documentaries. The 97 one is the one that's any good. And then from there on through, I think they just had these agreements with whoever broadcast it that they would make a documentary. So this is a little clip from the 2009 Lions tour.
Right, you filming? Yeah. All right, okay. To all our troops, stay safe, and all the best wishes from the British and Irish Lions.
To all the troops overseas, keep on putting up the good work and keep on fighting.
Trying to make peace with you,
Yeah. Right, you know what to do.
Keep on fighting.
fighting on it. Oh, boys are cracked now, like.
So,
what a pearl.
the things that I like about this are just multiple. It involves Andy Powell, which
I love Andy Powell.
I've got a question to ask about him before we get started.
Go on.
Andy. Now, when I think of Andy Powell, his career coincided with the time when I took least notice or least interest in rugby.
Okay.
So when I think of Andy Powell,
yes,
and I'm sure that he's very sad about this, I think of the golf buggy incident.
I think that's fine. I think he'd be all right with that.
Yeah, it's fine.
He got into a fight with some football fans in a pub in West London
when he was playing for Wasps.
That was it.
Some QPR fans hit him over the head with a bar stool.
Yeah. So those are the two things I think of when I think of Andy Powell. Now, I hadn't realised he was a British Lion.
Yeah.
So he was good then.
Well, so he was very, very good. And I'm not saying he was picked for the Lions tour purely because he was a laugh.
For banter.
But
the banter choice.
There's a layer of truth in there.
Yeah.
Right.
In that they needed a few people who were, fun. So he was rooming with Luke Fitzgerald, the Irish wing, a couple of weeks before the first test. And Luke's on the verge of getting into the Lions test team. And Andy has decided very much he is on a midweek, I'm having a laugh tour.
Yeah.
So it's 4 a.m.
Playing against the club sides, not playing in the tests.
So he's not going to endanger the test side. He may have been told that from the start, I don't know, in fairness to him. But he comes in at 4 a.m, reasonably well oiled. Luke's been in bed since 10, and he's got a pizza in his hand, turns on all the lights, sits on his bed and starts to eat a pizza. Right. And Luke just said, Andy, could you turn the lights out, please? So he turns out the lights, and the next thing he knows, the room is covered in pizza because Andy has thrown it against one of those rotating fans in the ceiling and has splattered pizza all the way around the room.
You can't underestimate, on a tour like that, morale, right? So
I'm not sure that would improve my morale.
Oh, I think it would.
That would drive me
nuts. But the other 31 blokes in the squad would be pissed themselves laughing. It'd be team bonding. I did a thing with Rod Gilbert once, Al. I think we did different days on the same weekend where he did like a sports quiz in a theatre up in Wales somewhere. And there was a Feel the Sportsman round.
Oh, at the Park and Dare in Treorchy. Yeah, I did that, yeah. Ryan Jones, I had to feel.
Yeah, I felt Andy Powell. I've never felt legs like it. And I played a bit of rugby. He came out this way. I think he'd be fine with a golf cart thing. He came out, I was blindfolded. He's pushing a toy golf buggy, right?
Right.
And he's got legs like my waist. He is absolutely enormous, right?
Yeah,
but all any more than I talk about afterwards was the golf buggy incident on the M4. I mean, he was a very good number 8, very good player, British Lion. No one cares about any of that stuff.
No.
It's always what happened that night and who was driving the other buggy. That's all. And I know who's driving the other buggy, but I'm not going to say it on air.
Well, with the banter thing though, I remember discussing this backstage with you, Mike, at a gig. The '89 Lions.
I just chucked a pizza at a fan, remember?
Backstage at the Cardiff Glee.
Icebreaker.
I've never met him before. But the '89 Lions, who won the series against Australia, I think Mike told me this story that obviously it's players from England, Wales, Scotland and Ireland, and they don't know each other. If they do know each other, they don't know each other very well, apart from the players from their own countries. So Mike was saying that on the first night they all got told, you're not sitting with anyone from your own country, and we want you to get as drunk as possible.
Yeah.
As a team bonding thing, and then you can swap stories and you can make each other laugh, and then in the morning we'll all have horrendous hangovers, we'll run them off, and then we'll get to work. And I really admire that, because I suppose it must have been Ian McGeechan who was coach of the '89.
'89 would have been, yeah.
So yeah.
Clive Rowland's manager.
This is where they really miss out in football in this country. And I know that you were a big fan of the home. They used to have the home internationals. Yeah. And then obviously not such a big thing now, because there's never been that British team, and whether it's because they want to, FIFA have always wanted, I think, Britain to have a British team. So the home associations are obviously very wary of doing that, because do themselves out of a place, basically. But it must be, when you talk to boys who've played British Lions, they just say it's next level. That you're playing with they're obviously they're your rivals on the pitch, but to go away with the best players in the British Isles and really bond over it. Then in my mind, I always think of players from other home nations playing for a British team with obviously a backbone of England players. What would Ryan Giggs have been like in that team? What would Ian Rush have been like in that team? And there's always that thought, isn't there?
It's interesting because there was a long time when England, the problem they needed to solve was they needed a left-sided midfielder.
Winger, yeah.
And it was Ryan Giggs is the obvious one.
Crazy.
I mean, in the 80s, I used to talk about this a lot when I was at school. The spine of the team would have been Welsh because Rush was better than Lineker and Southall was definitely better than Shilton.
Yes. Yeah.
And Ratcliffe was better than Butcher or Mark Wright or any of the centre halves you would have played. So then and what Wales had in the mid-80s was quite a weak midfield, but you had two fantastic strikers in Rush and Hughes up front. The problem is that it would be an enormous... I mean, the Welsh FA and Welsh fans are dead against it because FIFA hate the fact that there are 4 countries because they see it as stealing 4 places. And the African nations and the South Americans in particular hate it. Which is why the 2012 Team GB was a big problem. You know, the team that Ryan played in and Craig Bellamy and Joe Allen, Neil Taylor. Great Britain
football team. Who would the Andy Powell be?
What?
Who's your Andy Powell?
Can you take James Collins?
Come on, who's he going to be? Come on.
What I love about James Collins, he is old school. He's like a footballer from the 80s.
I reckon Jamie Vardy's up for slinging food at fans and stuff. Do you reckon? Electric fans in the stadium, whatever, just throw it.
I'm trying to think who the banter choice would be.
And to be fair to Andy Powell in that clip, he's just pointing at he's getting... I mean, that's...
Keep on fighting.
He's gone mad.
Keep on fighting.
If you join the army...
Yes.
At some point... there's a good chance you have to shoot people or get shot. That's what the army is. And he just got a bit freaked and said, "Keep on fighting."
And Stephen Jones looks like a naughty
Stephen
schoolboy
Jones,
as well. So like funny,
giggling schoolboy.
Yeah.
He just looks at him like it's almost like it's a comedy documentary. The way that Stephen pauses for a second. They go, "We're trying to make peace."
He was at school with me, Stephen Jones.
Was he?
Of course he was.
Yeah.
Of course he, he's one of the 12.
Yeah.
So this week's documentary choice is mine. I have gone for a 2014 film called Next Goal Wins. It's on Amazon Prime. You can buy it if you haven't got Amazon Prime. You can buy it on YouTube as well to watch. It is about American Samoa's football team. They play a World Cup qualifier back in 2001 against Australia, and they lose 31-0. And that is the start point, really, for this. They want to get better. They bring in a new coach, and this is kind of their journey from 31-0 to wherever it takes them.
I wish that I can go back and play against Australia, You can't change anything on the internet. It's still going to stay in the record for a long time. It's embarrassing,
I was there when Australia beat us 30-0. 30, I think 30 or 31, I'm not, but I know it was 30. The boys, they got the hearts. I know they not really have the skills and everything, but they got the guts.
We're always the underdogs, and we always will be until we prove them wrong.
They needed 9 goals today. You gave them only 8. Step. These are steps. Steps all going in the right direction.
I played with George Best, Johan Cruyff, that coached several MLS teams.
Thomas is a real professional, high-level coach.
Go! Pressure! Vitala! Go, Buddy!
He's tougher.
You're playing yourself out of the starting 11 right now. If you're not going to be mentally tuned in, you're a risk, man.
It's kind of a journey of 2 parts for me, this one. The coach, the initial coach, who, when they interview him, says, yeah, we lost 30-0 to Australia. And then somebody the other side of the camera obviously looks at him and he goes, yeah, 31 or 30, whatever it was. He's like, don't hide behind that one goal, mate. It was 31-0.
Oh, wow.
That is modern era as well.
Mate, I've got to say, I guess I love listening to this, not my bits, but you two. And I love the steers we get. I sat down and watched this in the middle of the week. And I think I mentioned this to you on the phone. The first sort of half of it, I'm giggling away, thinking this is fairly pathetic, and it was almost like a joke documentary about how bad this team were.
Yeah.
But the second half of it just kicks you in the nuts. Like no spoiler alerts, but there's a bit towards the end where I was in tears. I was so desperate for them to do well. I was in tears watching it on the couch, and it's so uplifted at the end of it. It's such a good documentary.
So the guy they bring in is a coach called Thomas Rongen. He's a Dutch guy, and the first clip of him, the first soundbite, is him just going, "Yeah, I played with George Best and Johan Cruyff," and you immediately think, "Oh, you're going to be a dick."
Yeah,
and it's almost as if his story is as much the story as it is of the American Samoans. So them kind of coming up to his level and him pulling back from being a bit of a knobhead to being a normal human. Yeah. And it's a really interesting journey for both sets, I think. And I think everybody involved in it comes across as just being impressive and charming.
What I found amazing was I remember that 31-0 because it made headlines all over the planet.
Mm.
And I think Arbroath beat Bonaccord in the Scottish League 36-0 in 1885.
Right.
And that's still the record margin, record defeat. But that's 135 years ago.
Yeah.
So to lose when scores are in the 30s in a game that's recognised by FIFA, you think, well, they are rubbish. So
this is no reflection on the Australian football team, but they're not Brazil either. I mean, they're not the best team in the world.
No, so I googled it. And American Samoa has a population of about 65,000 people.
It's the same as Barry, yeah.
Yeah. So they've it's a tiny little place. Now I absolutely love this documentary.
Oh,
and
so good.
There is the bit that made me cry as well. I just couldn't believe it. So again, no spoilers. But what I found very interesting was I've just finished The Test, the documentary that Steff chose a few weeks ago about the Australian cricket team. In this sort of post-ball tampering era, and they're rebuilding. Mm. Now, the Australian cricket team, cricket is Australia's national sport, and it's a Western developed country, so they're professional sportsmen, and they've got everything provided for them, and they're playing in one of the highest, sort of profile contests in world sport, I would say. And yet, the themes of camaraderie and team spirit are basically the same as in Next Goal Wins.
Yes.
Because when they lose, they're upset, and when they win, they're delighted. And it's about the team coming together to bond. And because I was watching both documentaries in tandem, the amount of parallels I saw between a really terrible football team and a fantastic cricket team really struck me. And
they get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to do the first training session.
Yeah.
Because then they've all got to work all day. Some are fishermen, some are whatever they are, right? But they work all day. Then they come back at sort of 5, 6 o'clock in the night for the second training session. So if you get up at 4:30, training, working all day, training again, no money. None of them have paid any money for it. And like you said, not only... It's the anticipation of losing as well. It's that horrible feeling.
Yes.
When you're playing a game that you're going to get tonked.
Yeah.
That's a horrible feeling for that 7
absolutely.
days, right?
Well, there's a tournament they travel to before the Dutch guy comes on board, and they've got kind of an interim coach in charge, and there's a scene in the dressing room before the first game.
Is it?
Where, yeah, it is. Yeah, and you think this is going to be the turning point, and they're in the changing room, and he goes, "What do we do if we lose the ball?" And all the players go, "Get it back." And he says, "What? When we get the ball back, what are we going to do? Keep it."
Well, mate, it's not even that. If you listen to it, he says, "What do we do when we lose the ball?" There's no fucking...
It's not if.
There's no if involved, right? What do we do when we lose the ball? We talked about the bit with Graham Taylor,
Yeah.
And obviously managers shout out stuff on the sideline and it's in short packets of information, right? And you might say, press, press, stay tight, do this, do that, He's screaming out in that game, he's going, turn around! Turn around! Look at the ball! Look, I mean, that's really basic, isn't it? So someone on the field is facing the wrong way in a game.
Yeah, the Dutch coach who has played with Johan Cruyff and George Best, so what happened? Because under the jurisdiction of the US Football Association, they just appealed for a coach. They said, "Well, can anyone please come and help out?" And he's the only person who applies. And he grew up in Amsterdam, and obviously they're football mad in Holland. And they don't really dwell on this actually. But I would love to know what he was doing with them initially, because I'm assuming it was just the absolute basics, the fundamentals, because if they're facing the wrong direction as the match is taking place, where do you begin? Where do you start?
There's a bit before he arrives, and I think Larry Manao is keen to make a good impression on Thomas Rongen.
Yeah.
And he basically calls the boys in and says, tidy your rooms up, please. He said, and fucking hide the ashtrays. Right?
Yeah, yes.
I think that is sound advice, isn't it?
Yeah. When you're smoking, go around the back of the shed.
Yeah. Basically, don't stop smoking, but hide the ashtrays.
And as we're all from a small country, and I accept that Wales, with a population of 3 million, when it comes to the football, especially in South Wales, when you're competing with another major sport, and we're going to lose some players to that we're not going to compete on a national. We're not going to win the World Cup. Now, when you're from an island of 65,000 people, your expectations are going to be very, very different. But you cannot smoke.
Everyone could not smoke.
It is tremendously sad, I think, that their best player is the goalkeeper, and the goalkeeper who conceded 31 goals in an international. And it's 15 years on, and he's having effectively panic attacks, and anxiety dreams.
But he was still playing PlayStation as American Samoa trying to beat Australia.
Oh, mate, it's heartbreaking, that bit.
Anyone who's ever watched top-level sports, especially their country playing, has had that little daydream, or you've discussed it in the pub before the game. Okay, so I'm going to watch, I don't know, Wales play at the Euros, and Bale goes down. Yeah. And Ryan Giggs, rather than choosing any of his substitutes, plucks me from the stands.
Could happen.
And, I've then got to play in a top-level football match. And you're discussing with your mates.
Well, 5-year-old's got a book where this happens to a bear.
Yeah, but how long would you last before your mates look really stupid? What would it be that sort of gave you away and all that kind of thing? Now, if you're from a small island like that and you're playing a game that is, it's a World Cup qualifier, it must be terrifying. Because you think, well, I'm just going to be made to look like a right plonker.
Yeah.
But they're just as patriotic as anyone else. You don't want to make a fool of yourself.
They just want to be a bit better. Not because they lost 31-0, but because they think they can be a bit better.
And they don't want to be bottom of the FIFA rankings.
No, they think they can score a goal.
I don't think I've ever been as emotionally invested in a team's performance.
No.
There wasn't Wales or the Swans in any sport, in anything.
Yes.
I watched out with my boy who's 10, and we both looked at each other afterwards and said, that's now our second favourite team.
Yeah.
All right. I'll look for American Samoan results whenever I see FIFA stuff going on.
And the first half an hour, you think, okay, it's just a documentary about a terrible football team. And then once you're 30 minutes in, I was absolutely gripped.
It was absolutely brilliant, yeah. Brilliant.
So it's on Amazon Prime. It's also available on YouTube if you want to find it there and pay a bit of cash for that if you haven't got Amazon Prime. Right, round 2 of clips. Elis, you get to go first with this one.
I was inspired to choose this after having a discussion when I did Fight and Talk, which is a programme Mike has done lots of times, with Steve Bunce, the voice of boxing. And it was around the time of the Conor McGregor-Floyd Mayweather fight. And we were discussing it, and I thought I was saying the things that Bunce wanted to hear. So I said, I'm not a fan, actually. I think it's discrediting the sport, and I think it's a slight insult to all of the boxers who've trained so hard who'll never get to fight Floyd Mayweather and are clearly better boxers than Conor McGregor ever will be. And Steve said, no, absolutely not. This has always happened in boxing.
Yeah.
And you've always had these freak show fights of people fighting people from other disciplines, and also boxing has always been about entertainment, and it's always been about making money, and it made an absolute fortune, and people were obsessed with it. And I was quite surprised by what Steve Bunce said, and then I remembered the Chuck Wepner-Andre the Giant fight, which I had heard of, and I went back and looked at it. And I've done a little bit more reading about it, but anyway, let's take a look.
Chuck Wepner, a club fighter who was the inspiration for Rocky Balboa of the Rocky movies, took on another wrestler, Andre the Giant, a 400-pounder who nearly swallowed him whole.
Chuck is the kind of guy who would probably fight a gorilla or a kangaroo. It wouldn't make any difference to Chuck. He was on the style of Tony Galento, who was known to fight a bear even like that.
Now, Chuck Wepner is 6'5", but Andre the Giant is a giant. So the way he's thrown around the ring, he looks about 13 years old, like he's fighting his dad or something.
He's the giant in The Princess Bride. That's why I was a huge fan.
I mean, he's well over 7 foot. So he's over a foot.
7'6", 7'8".
Yeah, something like that. Wow. So he's over a foot taller than Chuck Wepner. Now I'd always assumed that it was legitimate, but they reckon that it was thrown, that fight, or there's evidence to show that it wasn't a valid fight, shall we say? But there's been a lot about this. I knew that a boxer had fought a bear. And then I looked that up. That's also Chuck Wepner. So
yeah. Not a boxer.
Chuck.
So he has got form.
That's brilliant.
Fighting people. Now, when Chuck Wepner fought a bear, and as a boxer, he'd fought Muhammad Ali. Like he was a decent boxer.
Yeah.
Wepner fought Victor the Bear twice once his boxing career came to an end in the mid-70s. Although Victor the Bear was declawed, defanged and wore a muzzle, he was still a bear.
I like the way he fought him twice, as his manager made sure there was a rematch.
Rematch
clause. Make the bear sign it.
Wepner was warned not to hit the bear in the face, what with him being a bear and all. The bear was 8 feet tall and 650 pounds, a figure that is disputed by wrestling bear historians. The fights were both considered draws because Muhammad Ali fought, what's his name, Inoki. Antonio Inoki, who was a Japanese professional wrestler in a mixed rules match.
Well, it's interesting because it kind of leads a little bit onto... Because the initial UFC... Have you ever watched UFC 1?
I watched it.
No.
I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
So basically, people turn up and they are the best of their chosen sport.
I got it from... there was a video shop on Richmond Road. My friend Simon and I went in there. We were in university and we got a video out. This looks a bit of fun. UFC, right? Went home, put it on, thinking it was going to be like wrestling, like Big Daddy against Giant Haystacks or Ultimate Warrior against Hulk Hogan, right?
Oh, it's horrific.
So we put this thing in, and the first one was a sumo wrestler in the sumo gear against this Dutch shoot fighter, right? I didn't even know what a shoot fighter was.
What is a shoot fighter?
It's just like, I think
it's got a gun.
A fucking big gun. No, so... it's like a kickboxer, I suppose. So I thought, I was just going to work now. And the sumo bloke was massive. He was huge. And he runs at this Dutch bloke who sort of sidesteps him, trips him up. I thought, what's going to happen next? He kicks him in the face, right? Yeah. Like full-on kicks him in the face. His nose explodes. I looked at Simon and went, holy shit, what's this?
Yeah. It's the kind of thing that happens in a pub car park.
That's basically what it is.
That's what it was then. I think like Ken Shamrock was a boxer. Then there was like the Gracie brothers from jiu-jitsu. And there wasn't a UFC style of fighting.
No,
everyone
it was literally
boxers against wrestlers against karate.
Bring your best thing.
Yeah,
let's see if it's better than that thing.
The thing with,
which I prefer, to be honest,
Ali versus Inoki. I mean, not Andre the Giant versus Chuck Wepner, but certainly Ali versus Inoki. If you were the heavyweight champion of the world in the 70s and 80s, you were recognised, I mean, up to the 70s and 80s, you were recognised as the world's hardest bloke.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Mike Tyson was the world's hardest bloke. And I don't think...
Having seen the footage of him training this week on Twitter, he still is the world's hardest bloke.
And I, you know, heavyweight boxers, they don't still have that allure, I don't think, in the same way because of MMA and UFC and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, don't get me started on this, mate, because I would put the Gypsy King in against any UFC fighter, and my money's on the big fella.
It's if they start grappling with them, or if they get them on the floor.
If my auntie had bollocks with her uncle, you know, it's not.
The other thing is
he's 6'7". You got to get inside his reach first. He's just going to club
he's 6'9". It's Deontay Wilder 6'7".
6'9". Sorry, mate. Yeah.
Tyson's 6'9". He's Andre the Giant size. But
I apologise to any UFC fan, because whenever you mention this online, UFC fans think you've basically you've massacred a village or something. They go insane.
Just go straight for Bubs. Tag the rest of us out. Yeah.
I think,
if you're going for him, go for him.
I don't like UFC, and I don't really follow it.
I don't mind it, but
I support Brett Johns because he's from Swansea and he's
a lovely human.
And he's a lovely bloke. And I really hope that he wins every bout, and I hope he's world champion.
And they're supremely fit, supremely brave. You know, I'm not saying that. A lot of it's grappling, though. I can't stand to watch people just grapple on the floor for bloody hours.
They are. It's. I mean, this is going to sound mental.
Good.
But I don't like it. Although I do like boxing because it's too brutal, really. I find UFC I can find it quite sickening, even though...
The punching on the ground stuff.
All of that stuff.
Who were the two the female fighters recently? The Polish girl against the... Oh, what's her name? But her face afterwards, she had this like hematoma above her eye.
Yeah.
She looked deformed. We'll put it on the... It was a UFC fight. But
stick it up.
Her forehead was enormous. Right?
Yeah.
It was. She'd fractured her skull or she'd done something. But I thought, Christ.
There are actually fewer deaths in UFC, far fewer deaths than in boxing, because there are so many different ways to win.
Yeah.
So you can get someone to tap out and all that.
It's interesting.
Kind of stuff.
I listened to someone talking about. I think he was an ex-boxer who got on the UFC, saying that when you get knocked out, and I've been knocked out playing rugby. You know, when it's a weird feeling when you wake up and you've had that full concussion, and it's a horrible feeling. You feel like your head's bloody so tight. It's just not nice. But he said, and it's never happened to me, he said when you get choked out, it's completely different. It's just a terrifying, horrible feeling.
Also, they wear smaller gloves, so you can't hit as hard because the gloves you wear are different. The thing with UFC, though, is the boxers who go into UFC and they are just practitioners of boxing and have no martial art background at all, they always get absolutely battered.
They do,
in UFC.
Yeah.
They get absolutely battered.
Well, in those early days, it was always the Gracie brothers. And
yes.
Like I said, Ken Shamrock and some big hitters. But they would get you on the floor in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
You're in serious trouble.
But boxers like James Toney didn't he? Quite a few boxers at the end of their careers, I thought, well, it can't be that.
Kimbo Slice did it, didn't he?
Well, Kimbo Slice, a man who was made famous for fighting in his back garden.
In gardens, I loved it. I used to love Kimbo Slice videos on YouTube.
I think
what manner of maniac watches that on YouTube and goes, I'll have a bit of that. Fucking
take you down.
Is Kimbo there, please? He's out the back garden. All right. Press record.
The Kimbo Slice videos were always the same. It was a bloke turning up full of bravado, and he's bouncing on his heels because he's like he's coked up or something. He's like, I'll batter him. I'll batter him now. And then as soon as Kimbo Slice comes at him, you could just see his confidence evaporate, and then he gets beaten up next to a washing line in a barbecue.
Just punches a rotary line.
But because when Kimbo Slice,
I hate myself for watching those videos. By the way, when you go down a rabbit hole, it's worse than porn. I flick it down. My wife walks in. What are you watching? Nothing. Two blokes fighting on a canal towpath. I love it. I love it.
If we're talking about how, you know, cannabis is a gateway drug, Kimbo Slice was a gateway drug for me for watching very late 80s, early 90s Irish travellers calling each other out.
I love it. I'll fight any man. I will fight any man. You won't fight me, mate, you lunatic. What?
Give me a call, like the number's 0123 give me.
Are you listening, Davy Jones? I'm calling you out. Oh, what? Honest to God, I love it. I can watch those fights all day long.
Give me a ring on telephone. The name's 0140. Number's 01423. Come on, I'll fight any man. Like I'll fight any.
He's awesome. Have you had enough, Davy? Have I had enough? And he gets up and just keeps going. And he's got like one fella's always got a tracksuit bottoms on and a pair of trainers, and another fella's got like a vest and jeans on. Have you had enough? Has he bollocks had enough? Just absolutely rock. I love watching them.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
I'll try to have a car park for the £5. Get me on those. I love those videos.
Yeah. Kimbo Slice, I reckon that is how I didn't have a girlfriend. That is how I spent 2005, was watching Kimbo Slice videos.
Have you had enough?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Yes, please, mister.
Sorry, Mr. Slice.
Oh, yeah, imagine it. Did you record that? Delete it. Delete it. Don't put that on fucking YouTube. You dare. You fucking dare put that on YouTube.
Trying to press delete with your broken hand.
How did Kimbo Slice go, love? I can't. What? Fucking lunatic.
Oh my God.
Delete it. Delete it.
I gotta be honest, it was like bigger than I expected, actually.
Oh, no. Guess what I'm doing after this?
I thought I was the only one. I thought I was the only one who was watching it.
I had a T-shirt. Loved it.
Jesus.
It was never formalised in any way. It was literally in a back garden.
Not even a bit of rope to make a circle.
No.
None of that bollocks.
Like, you know, he'd knock some poor cunt out, and he would wake up next to an old bag of cement.
Right, let's go gear change, Mike. What is? What is your clip for round two?
Right, this is me fighting a neighbour in my back garden.
I was stuck it on YouTube yesterday.
Oh man, this is right. This is. I used to love watching this. There was a program called Kickstart on TV and BBC in the 80s, which is about trials, motorbike riding and competing. And then they did a junior version called Junior Kickstart, hosted by Peter Purvis. And this is a clip which I love from Junior Kickstart.
This is the one that really caused the problems, and it's caused one for him too. Oh, he seemed to lose all confidence. He just threw that off. He caught his thigh on the handlebars. You can see him holding himself there. Oh dear. And the St John's ambulance man tried to get there in a hurry. Well, he probably needs some treatment in a minute. Nick Britton, the promoter. I'm sorry, this is... one shouldn't laugh. The poor lad took a nasty knock there, but this is a bit like the Keystone Cops down there.
There's so much that's right about this clip, right? I mean, the fact you've got my lad's 10, okay? Yeah. I don't let him go on roller skates unless he's holding my hand, okay?
Yeah.
They've got a kid there of 10 years of age on what looks like a fairly full-size sort of 125 two-stroke trials bike, right?
Yes.
For a start, the bike's huge on him, right? So health and safety bells start ringing anyway. He then comes towards essentially a bridge. Now it's just a balance beam. So what this kid's got to negotiate is like probably a 10 or 15 foot long, 4-inch wide beam, right? And try and stay on the beam. That's all he's got to do. Now you're going to put that beam on the grass. Everyone's happy, right? If he falls off, he's 10 years of age, he's fallen 4 inches, he's going to be fine. In the 80s, they put the balance beam over a fucking pit. right? Which is about 10 feet deep, covered with some straw, right?
Bit of straw.
So this kid falls off, right? Falls off the balance beam. Looks like he punctured a spleen on the handlebars, right? And ripped his bollocks on the tank, right? If he had them, I don't know. And then
femur's gone.
And then in proper 80s style, there's a bloke wearing what looks like an air raid warden's jacket. Right?
It's someone from Dad's Army.
It's like the warden, like what's his name, Pertwee from Dad's Army.
Yeah.
In a frock coat.
Excuse me, it's a blackout. We've heard the siren. It's a blackout.
He comes in his air raid warden issue frock coat, right? Falls into a pit of hay on top of the kid, right? And then his mate comes in and falls in as well. It's just... And Peter Purvis is trying not to laugh. We don't know at this point whether the kid has punctured the spleen. But Peter Purvis can't stop laughing, right? But there's some... I don't know if it's a woman or a man, but it's quite a high-pitched voice. Pissing themselves laughing all the way through it, right? And I just think, at what point do you make kids do something that dangerous for a start, right? And then have no... There's no plan B. If something goes wrong... There's just some doddery old twat in a frock coat, and that's it. Who's wearing like a white leather handbag on. And I don't know what the bloke with the frock coat's got in that white leather handbag.
But it's not going to help.
It'll be smelling salts.
It'll be smelling salts and some gauze, and that's which has been there since like 1942 and has evaporated. Right, it's no good to man nor beast. And Peter Purvis must have seen a lot anyway, because he obviously worked with John Noakes. Google John Noakes climbs Nelson's column.
Right. You talk health and safety.
Jesus
this
Christ.
is the maddest thing I have ever seen.
Anyone to watch that without their palms drenched in sweat.
I wouldn't do that for $100,000.
John Noakes goes up just a lashed-on wooden ladder tied on by bits of ropey old hemp rope up Nelson's column, right? Wearing Cuban-heeled ankle boots, a pair of flares, a jumper, right? No helmet, no safety, nothing safety to speak of, right? The bit when they go to the overhang, and they've just got this sort of, it's like a 45-degree angle upside down, and he's laughing about it, about how dangerous it is and how scared he is.
Yeah.
I'm thinking but
he's still doing it.
Oh,
also,
my God.
not only
the cameraman's doing that with a 1970s camera.
Also, not only is he hundreds of feet up, once he gets up there, which I couldn't do, I'm terrible with heights. Once he's up there, he's got to clean a load of pigeon shit.
How's that entertaining? How's that kid's entertainment? There's another time he cleans. I think he's cleaning the face of the. We call it Big Ben, the clock tower in Westminster.
Yeah.
But he sat on what can only be described as a shit little bit of wood, right? Like a swing. And they lowered him down on just an old rope. Bleak as fuck. I mean, it wasn't exactly Thundercats. You know what I mean?
I just cannot believe the courage of the man, because I
love John Noakes. He's everything I love about madcap mental British people.
Yeah, I go back to that clip probably once every 6 months and can never believe what I'm seeing.
So if I was commentating on Junior Kickstart and there was like a 8-foot pit with a balance beam and a kid going across on a motorbike, I'd say, hang on a minute, lads, just put it on the grass. It's the same skill. It's just less dangerous, right?
Or get a crash mat or something better than straw.
You can see Peter Purvis thinking that kid's a pussy.
Oh, little do we know, 15 years later, he was fighting Kimbo Slice in some backyard in Chicago.
Right, my clip for round 2 is a commercial. It is for Kellogg's Start, and it is kind of why I like athletics.
Start with 3 wholesome grains, not 1. 11 vitamins and minerals, glucose and honey.
So it's Steve Cram in what I assume is the Nevada desert. It's pretty sparse and pretty bleak. And this would probably be the first time I would have seen, because it's kind of like 84, 85.
Yeah.
So this would be the first time I'd seen Steve Cram in any form. And I must have eaten Kellogg's Start for, I'd say, 7 years as a result of this advert.
I love Start.
Yeah.
But
what a cereal.
No longer
to market it as a health food It is absolutely preposterous to market that stuff as a health food. You may as well eat birthday cake for breakfast. It is the sweetest cereal.
And I do.
Yeah. Every time I'll have a spoonful.
4 times a year.
I think that's delicious. And then within 10 seconds, my teeth are itching. It is.
Well, I'm not saying lockdown's affected me, but I googled start cereal earlier, right?
Yeah.
And it's basically Cheerios, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
3 grains and a shitload of sugar. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And various vitamins. See, you mocked me last week for just getting my vitamins from a bottle, but they sold that.
Kellogg's Start.
They sold that on the fact you got 30 vitamins for the day just by eating Kellogg's Start. You crumble a chicken breast on top of there, mate, and you were away.
I'll have it with a pint of Guinness for Ian.
I would say I ate Mars bars for another 3 years because I wanted to be Peter Elliott.
Yeah.
Well, Mars bars were also basically marketed as an energy bar, weren't they? I mean,
Yeah. Work, rest, and play.
That was such a golden age, mate, wasn't it? Of like when you had Ovet and Co and into Cram and that sort of middle distance running.
Yeah.
There's a big, obviously there's always a big debate in sport about nature versus nurture. And like, so why are people from Jamaica, seem to dominate a lot of the sprint events? And obviously there's probably a physical side to it, but a lot of it is who your role models are.
Culture.
I watched a doc a couple of years ago we talked about Usain Bolt there, about Jamaican sprinters. It's massive in Jamaica. Like the number of people come out to watch kids sprint.
Yeah.
If you're the fastest kid in your town or your village, that's a huge deal. People come out to watch it in droves. So obviously everyone there is trying to be the fastest person in the world.
He trained in Crystal Palace near where I live, and I knew someone who went down there to watch him, and he was pushing the other athletes in that Jamaican team so hard they were being sick on the side of the track.
Just throwing up Kellogg's Start everywhere with that. Sugar puffs everywhere, as far as you can see.
Oh, sugar puffs, man. Let's go to the books now. Mike, you're up first.
Right, my book this week is called 90 Minutes of Freedom, Prescoid Football Club, the only prisoner football team in Wales. Bit of disclosure, it's written by a friend of mine that I was in university with called Jamie Grundy, and it looks at, as it says in the title, it's a prisoner football team in Gwent, in Prescoid Open Prison, and they run a football team to sort of rehabilitate the lads in there and try to get them doing something positive with their life. And it's the bit of preamble about the prison, about prison football. But then what's interesting, what I found really interesting, is it interviews all the players, and you get to hear their voice, and it's their story, and it's what football means to them and what being in a team means to them, and there's some really touching stories in there. And the bit that I found really interesting, I was doing a little bit of research about it, is that they've won the league that they're in, I think 10 times in the last 15 years, because they're good, fit young lads on the whole, right? And I think they're in Gwent Division 2. But because if they got promoted from that, they would end up in the Football League pyramid. Part of the deal with them being admitted into the league is they can't be promoted, right? So it doesn't matter how well they play, how often they train, what sort of football they play, and they outscore people by a bucket load of goals to almost none. And like I said, regularly win the league, but they know that they can't be, whatever happens, they're not going to go up. And there's a weird little metaphor there for that sort of loop that you can get stuck in prison anyway. So yeah, it's just an interesting look at. I didn't even know that went on, to be honest. I've seen The Longest Yard and I've seen Mean Machine, and I knew that it was a big thing in America that they do these sports teams. I had no idea that they played prison sports in this country.
Right, my choice for this week is called Knowing the Score. It's kind of a blend of sport and philosophy. It's by a guy called David Papineau, and he kind of looks at things. He's a philosopher, so he looks at the whole of sport through the prism of what he's trained in, but he's a big sports fan as well. There are bits about rules and about fairness, where he says that if you were just a philosopher, then Thierry Henry's handball against the Republic of Ireland means that he went against the rules of the game, therefore France cannot win that game from a philosophical point of view.
hate to blow my own trumpet, as we all know, but I specialised in sports philosophy when I did my degree.
Did you?
Yeah, that was my thing. I did sports philosophy and ethics. But there's a big... That's quite a strong philosophical argument to say that if, as soon as you're not competing within the rules of that sport, then you can't win that sport because you're not playing it.
I never thought of that.
I think it's a fantastic sort of logic. There's a quote from C.B. Fry, who was England international at football and cricket, and also equalled the world record for the long jump. So quite good back in his day.
Did he ever fight Kimbo Slice? Because he would have got his arse kicked.
And when the penalty rule got brought into football, in his rule he was absolutely outraged by the introduction of a penalty, because he said it's a standing insult to sportsmen to have to play under a rule which assumes that players intend to trip, hack or push their opponents and behave like cads of the most unscrupulous kidney. What's yours, Al? What's your choice for this week?
Mine is an absolutely extraordinary book about an absolutely extraordinary athlete who I think is the greatest runner of all time, Emil Zatopek. Today We Die a Little, Olympic legend, a Cold War hero, by Richard Asquith. He's such an astonishing human being. Pretty much every page, something will happen. You think, oh, that's the thing that if that happened to me, I would dine out on that for the rest of my life. He completely redefined running. He was doing 25 miles of sprints a day. And the stuff he was doing, and also it's in Czechoslovakia in the winter, so he's running with 3 tracksuits on, and he's getting back to have a shower, and there's no hot water, so there's ice in the shower room, and that's why he reckons he never got a cold.
Catch that chicken rack.
He spoke 7 languages. He set 18 world records, and he won 5 Olympic medals, the 52 Olympics. Yes. He won the 5,000 metres, he won the 10,000 metres. He won the marathon and broke the record, the Olympic record for the marathon, having never run a marathon before.
Oh God,
so his tactic for the tactic singular for the marathon was he found out who the favourite was. It was an English runner, guy from East London. He was like, well, I'll just stick with him, and then I'll win at the end. So he sticks with this guy at the 13-mile mark. So he says, the pace, Jim, is it too fast? Peters, irritably, no, it has to be like this. They're 13 miles into the marathon at this stage.
Brilliant.
Pause. Emil, are you sure it's not too fast? Peters, with what he later described as Cockney defiance, actually, it's too slow. So he was like, all right then. So he just burns him off. And that's it. Never sees him again. There are a huge amount of myths around him. One of the myths was that he used to train with his wife on his back. That they don't think that is true. But the one time he definitely ran with his wife on his back was when they were walking.
They've been shot at from behind.
They were walking in a wood, and there was a little stream, and there was a bloke just eating a sandwich. And he went up to this bloke who was eating the sandwich, and he said, should we throw my wife in the river? And the guy puts his sandwich down and goes, yeah, I mean, if she's up for it, let's go for it. So they throw in the river and she breaks her leg, and then he carries her back to the village. That's the only time they reckon he carried her. But he wasn't training sort of day to day.
Was he all there? I mean, what's he doing? Like my wife's jumped on my back before now, right? Not like that. In sport events and gigs.
Yes.
I went to go see the Manics, and she was on my back for part of that concert. I never felt the urge to stop a stranger and ask her to help me throw her in the tap
Chuck her on the way home.
I stopped a stranger eating a sandwich and asked him to throw my wife in the river. I'm reading that book. I'm reading that book because of that sentence.
Right, that is us for this episode. We have free beer on offer for you still. So beer52.com/distant for your 8 free beers. Keep your guesses coming in for the secret guitarist. Hannah Langford has gone for Coldplay's Johnny Buckland. Land's Lonely Heart says Brian May. BMS_2000 says James Dean Bradfield. Felix White from the Maccabees comes from pod_10. And Felix White also from Symes the Original. Could be. Could well be. Likes his cricket. Tailenders podcast guy.
Of course,
could be.
Yeah.
Could be Phoenix.
Also, Steff, ask people to get in touch with some classic 80s theme tunes that they can play. That.
Yes, we do. We need classic 80s sports themes for you guys to play on whatever you have in the house. If you have an acoustic, go for that. If you have an electric, go for that. If you've got the synthesizer out.
If you've got a ukulele, please spare us.
I'd rather a recorder.
Absolutely not. No recorders, no ukuleles. Can we say no kids?
Yeah. You've got the worst of precocious kids.
Absolutely. Save that for your own Twitter. Right, that is us for this week. Thank you, gentlemen, for your company.
Cheers,
I'm off to YouTube Kimbo Slice.